There are things that we should just stop doing by the time we turn 60. Some for physical reasons, some for mental health reasons, some just because we've earned the right to stop doing them. This video will discuss 7 things that people stop doing by age 60, if not before. All right, let's jump right in. First is ignoring personal safety. Now this is a big one because we should never ignore personal safety as a starting point, but things like balance and strength start to deteriorate a bit as we get older and we just don't notice it. Case in point, my daughter lives in New York City and she has an apartment on the 20th floor. And when she moved in, she noticed that the windows were dirty, and frankly, they should have been cleaned before she moved in. That was part of the agreement. But I can only imagine that that job is right up there with feeding the sharks at Ocean World or testing the king's food, meaning nobody really wants to do it. She called the building, and they already had a window cleaning crew coming in to clean other windows, so they just slotted her in. When they arrived, I happened to be there building a wall unit for her anyway, and after she opened the door, 2 men walked in. One was in his late 20s and the other was in his 50s. I was terrified at what I saw next. The man in his late 20s unlocked the window because they are all locked in New York City, and at first it looked like he was just going to poke his squeegee out and try to clean it from afar. And he did in fact try to do that, but it didn't work. So he decided to step out on the ledge because it was much faster to do it that way than try to attack the window from different weird angles with the squeegee. The problem here, aside from the obvious, is that it's an older building in New York and it doesn't have the safety latch that you hook a harness onto, and so the older gentleman held on to the younger gentleman with a tether while he was outside. To make matters worse, the younger man was new to window cleaning, so he was receiving direction on how to clean the window from the outside by the experienced window cleaner, the one on the inside. Now mind you, it's a big question whether the older man could save the younger man if he slipped and gravity took hold, and my daughter and I watched in horror as he started the process. He leaned forward against the building with one hand, and he used the other hand to spray, squeegee, and wipe. Spray, squeegee, and wipe. And he slowly moved himself from left to right. Now, it felt like hours as we watched this process play out, but in reality it was about 5 minutes. When it was all over, the window washer came in, got a high five from his boss, and started to pack up. I asked the older window washer if that's the way they always did it, and he said only if the building was built in the 1970s or 80s, because the window was a latch window and it would only open about 3 inches. In order to get out there, if they couldn't get it with the squeegee, they had to unlock it all together, and the window would just open up completely. By the way, before 1970, 1968, 1970, the windows would open up the old way, which is just like this, and they just take their squeegee and reach around. And I suppose after 1980, they had other safety features. But that period of time, that 20-year period of time, was a very dangerous period for window washers. He also volunteered that they've had no accidents to date, so I shouldn't be too worried about it. And when I asked him if they alternate, he said no. And this is an important point. And that's because the younger workers have better balance and better strength, and the older workers do not, and so they don't want to take the chance. So when you think about going up the extra step on the ladder, the one that you really shouldn't stand on, you probably shouldn't do it. And the same goes with power tools, chainsaws, lawnmowers, anything that's dangerous. If you feel like you shouldn't be doing it, you're probably right. The next point is that after 60, you should stop staying out late. I still remember fondly when I turned 21, I was with a group of friends and we all turned 21 the same year. And so that year, we started to experience the nightlife in Chicago. And there were quite a few Friday nights where we would stay out past midnight and hang out at places like Limelight, for example. That faded pretty quickly as people found their significant others and they had other commitments. But for that period of time, that 2 or 3 or 4 year period of time, it was quite exciting. But what was behind that wasn't going out late. It's the fact that I was with my friends and we were all together socializing, going out late. It wasn't the act of going out late itself. The fact is, during those days anyway, if I didn't meet my friends out late, I wouldn't have too many friends because everybody was out on Friday night. After age 60, if you went out late, you probably would be the only one from your original crew because the rest of them would have gotten home hours earlier and they'd be fast asleep. The next point, stop eating poorly. Many people who are age 60 or older don't eat well because frankly they never did. Their model was different when they were growing up. I'm sure many of you remember the show Happy Days, where Marion Cunningham, or as the Fonz would call her, Mrs. C, would come out and serve breakfast to everyone. She'd bring out a tray. It had pancakes, it had eggs, it had bacon. She put it down in front of the family, and everyone would look at each other with excitement in their eye, and the camera would zoom in at that look. Of course, nutritional science has shown us that eating like that is incredibly bad for you, and the original food pyramid that you learned when you were a child was replaced in 2005 by a different type of food pyramid and then eliminated altogether in 2011. Many people still eat like the Cunninghams, probably not the best idea for anyone who's 60 or older, or anyone for that matter. Next, stop skipping routine health exams. Now, I'll be the first to say that I'm guilty of going to the doctor, or at least I used to be guilty of going to the doctor, getting my physical. The results would come back fine, and that gave me carte blanche to skip the next one, and maybe the one after that. I'd get a little nervous, and on my third year, I would go get the exam. The results would come back, and I'd be negative again. Everything would be just fine, and that validated my strategy. But it's a bit like driving a car without a seatbelt. Today it might be okay, but someday it won't be okay. What got me to change, frankly, was a friend of mine went in for an exam, thought everything was going to be fine, and got a call literally the next day from the doctor saying that he needed to see her immediately. She went in, and the next week she was in for surgery. Now, fortunately, she's okay, it seems, but had they caught it earlier, there's a good chance she would not have had to go in for surgery. But like most things, the earlier you correct a problem, the less of a problem it really is. As my good friend James W. from Sydney, Australia is fond of saying, bad news does not get better with age. Now, he's referring to business situations, but the same can apply here. The next is stop unnecessary long-distance travel. Now, here is a mind-blowing statistic. Speaking of Australia, I've been to Australia 140 times, over 140 times. That's 5,600 hours in the air and 2.8 million miles in the air. That's a lot of time in the air. The reason I mention this is because there's no easy way to do that trip. It's 14 to 16 time zones away, depending on the time of year. And even if you fly business class, you're going to have world-class jet lag. If you give yourself a day to acclimate, you're still going to have world-class jet lag. There are things that you can do to reduce it a bit, but there's no way to just skip it because it's too big of a trip. Long-distance travel affects everyone, particularly if you're crossing a lot of time zones. And the fact is, the older you get, the more affected you are by that type of travel. So try to avoid flying far, but if you do need to fly far, see if you can travel north to south or south to north, not east to west or west to east. The next point, along those same lines, as you get older, you need consistent, predictable sleep. There's just no way around it. Good, predictable sleep helps you stay healthier, more alert, more focused, and things just flow better. Unfortunately, or fortunately, we all have one of these. But if you're having a hard time with consistent, predictable sleep, you probably have this sitting next to your bed. The last point is to stop worrying, or worry less anyway, about what other people think. As we get older, we have a natural tendency to worry less anyway. We've done the things that other people only dream of. Our station in life, our business life anyway, is rock solid, and our barometer is well tuned. The point is not to sweat the small stuff. There's an interesting study by the American Institute for Cognitive Therapy, and the result of the study is that 85% of what people worry about, they don't really need to worry about. And the remaining 15%, 79%, the impact is far less than they worried about, or they can handle it if nothing else. That means that 97% of what people worry about, they really shouldn't worry about. If you like this video, check out that video on why a retiree should not care about other people's opinions. Also, many people have commented on the new format. They like the additional content. So if you like this video and you want to see more like it, please make sure you click subscribe and turn on notifications so that you get alerted the next time I post a video. I post several times a week. This is Jeff Schmidt. I'll see you in the next video.